Today I'm going to talk junk. No change there, I hear you say, but the laugh may be on you because the question I'm asking is, why are you paying so much for other people's junk? If I say junk bonds to you, what's the first thought that springs to mind? For me, it's Michael Milken, who achieved infamy in the 1980s. But it's worth reminding you that he went to jail for insider trading, not because there's anything inherently illegal about junk bonds. But he was the poster boy of a new asset class that emerged in the late 1970s. Up until then, only governments and serious companies issued bonds. Investors knew there was virtually no risk of default, so they loaned money to these companies at higher rates of interest than the government would pay, and with almost total certainty of getting their capital back at the end. But junk bonds were an entirely new phenomenon. Young companies with little or no track record raised funds by offering higher interest rates on their bonds. Financial engineers like Milken used them to fund hostile takeovers of more established companies and then used the profits of the acquired company to pay off the debt. And he did it with remarkable success. I'm not saying that crime pays, but he only served 2 years of his 10-year sentence, and he still appears to be in the top 500 on the Forbes list of the world's wealthiest people. Junk bonds grew like wildfire through most of the 80s until crashing when the default rate soared towards the end of the decade. But junk bonds have bounced back in this era of almost zero interest rates. Investors are desperately seeking a decent yield and they've piled into them. What happens in the bond market when there's strong demand? Yields go down. So for several years now, we've had this bizarre situation where people are buying junk bonds that offer lower returns than ever, despite carrying significantly higher risk than government debt or bonds from well-established companies. In June, average junk bond yields reached a record low of 4.8%. That's getting down towards what the best 5-year bonds from banks are offering and in no way reflects a fair value for the risk involved. There's even been a new type of product appear called Covenant Light or Cov Light, where creditors have even less protection than normal. This type of lending's increased by more than 40% in America this year. A bit like the booming crowdfunding sector. I worry whether people are aware of the risks they're running with these loans and bonds. Will the company be around in 5 years' time to return your capital? How much of your wealth have you placed in these high-risk loans? Could your finances survive a total loss of that money? This kind of lending has an eerie resemblance to the subprime mortgages that triggered the 2008 crisis. It should only be used for the frothier end of your portfolio, maybe that top 5 or 10%, where you can accept a different risk-reward profile. It's definitely not the place for the family silver or for widows and orphans. When it comes to the price you pay for junk, be very careful out there.
The banks have let everybody down. It's been particularly hard for small businesses over the last few years since the heart of the crisis occurred, when Lehman's went bust in 2008.